What's up, everybody? It's Caleb with my pals Matthew and David, and we are coming to you from multiple states. I think David and Matthew.
Hey, everyone.
Classic location. So Matthew's in Arizona, probably 190 degrees there today.
Oh, yeah. It's not a cool day. Let me look at the weather real fast. Let's see what it is. It is.
Wait, before you tell us, Caleb, you want to take a stab? Loser pays for dinner next time.
Okay, 112.
112? Okay, I'm going to guess whoever's closest, right?
Yeah, we're not playing this without going over nothing.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and guess 105.
It surprised me, actually. Supposedly it's 101 right now. I figured it would be hotter than that.
David got way too excited.
I will say, though, I think tomorrow is supposed to be 110 or 111, so you should be right tomorrow. But today's a little bit. It's on a cool side today.
So dinner is on Caleb next time we meet up.
It's hoodie weather here right now, I guess.
I feel like it's always on you, so not much strange.
That's fine. We got you. I am coming to you live from Arkansas, or Kansas, as the locals, I think, call it. I'm not really sure. I'm visiting some good friends. So if you remember, episode maybe 5 or 6 was from here as well. I'm in their office. So this is some buddy of mine, Mark and Nikki. So thanks for their hospitality. And they are small business owners, and they're over here cranking away to my right. So if you hear some chattering or answering phone calls, that's what's going on. They run a construction business, kitchens and baths. So if you're in Northwest Arkansas and you need a kitchen or bath, tell them the Book Flipper referred you, and they will either take care of you or charge you double. I'm not sure which. So again, let us know where you're calling in from. We got a couple Facebook comments, which is good. I know that Facebook's been not promoting us very much recently. So I don't know
our own group. How about that?
It's our group. They should give us some love. Well, we have a fantastic guest. It's a wonderful young man, and we'll introduce him shortly. We're excited to have him. He's one of the more energetic fellas you're going to meet. And so we're excited to hear his story. I think he's old enough to drink, so I'm pretty sure we can have him on our Books and Bourbon series. But I'm coming to you live from Arkansas. For those of you that were able to swing through, I took about 15 phone calls yesterday. I do this drive time with Caleb.
15
minutes. Got 15 slots booked out, and then
Nice.
David and I chatted for another 45 minutes or so. So thanks to those that did call in. It was kind of fun. I got to hear a lot of different stories where many of you are at in your Amazon selling adventures. And I got people from all ends of the spectrum, from some bulk sellers that have been going since 2010 to people that are brand new. So that was awesome. It was a really fun time sharing my drive with you. I'll be driving back to Indiana on probably Monday night and Tuesday. So stay tuned. If you follow me on Instagram, you should be following me. If you're not, it's at the Book Flipper, and I'll be posting some links there probably Sunday or Monday to lock down those slots as well. Completely free, just a fun way to break up the drive and hear from lots of you as well. So Allie, stay tuned. Check out Instagram. Make sure you check out my stories and be ready for that as well. So anything new in your world, David? I feel like we just got to hang out about a week ago, which was great.
All right. So Matthew has the cool lights in his background, and then last week you had your cool lights. Hold on, give me a second.
Oh, he's got like disco ball in the ceiling now and everything.
It's here. Hold on, ready?
This is gonna be good.
It's gonna be so underwhelming. That's it. And
oh, nice.
Okay.
Oh, we got colors. Look at this.
Except here's
I
the
like
thing.
it.
My office is always so like bright and well lit. If you move this a little bit far out to kind of give it a little bit, I don't know. It doesn't really do much. Plus, I don't have a fancy camera, and I don't know. So I did.
It adds something to the background. I like it.
Yeah, I think I need to step up my background game. All I have is like my bookcase right now, so I don't know.
Put some background pressure. I've got the M. I don't know which way to point. I got the M behind me. I think it's their last name, but it probably just stands for money. So we're going to go with that. Speaking of backgrounds, it's time to introduce our guest. One of the best backgrounds I've seen yet. Actually, he's emulating what my background was for episodes 1 through 7 or 8 until Matthew finally talked me into it. So let's introduce our guest all the way from Pennsylvania. We have the one and only Flips4Miles, or just Miles. So Miles, thanks for joining our show.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I wasn't sure when I was being brought up, so it caught me off guard a little bit there, but good to,
Yeah,
good to chop it up.
we always wait till you're like picking your nose and doing something backstage and then bring you in. So we are excited to have you. I feel like you've been on the show a lot just in terms of jumping in and watching the show. So appreciate the support. And you have your own show. So we'll get to your story in a minute, but you have your own show. I see you got your own swag on. You want to give us the little preview of what that show is and how people could find it?
Yeah, so it's Buy Box Bandits podcast on all platforms. We've been doing it for like 10 months. We have a whole bunch of episodes with Caleb, as well as a bunch of other good, way better than Caleb Amazon, just a lot of other Amazon sellers and everything. I'm just kind of through the whole spectrum of arbitrage, books, wholesale, private label, all that's pretty fun stuff I get to do with a couple of my buddies I started with a year ago, basically with.
Perfect. Well, we'll look forward to digging into your story. We got to catch up a little bit yesterday, but I appreciate your energy, your enthusiasm, and your engagement in the community. So looking forward to digging under your story a little bit. Let's get to the bourbon part again. This is episode 11. So we've been going 11 weeks now. I think we're going to turn this into a podcast. Matthew's nodding. So I know, Miles, you said we should definitely release them as well.
The VA can distribute it like really easily just everywhere with like a thing called Simplecast.
Yeah.
Perfect. We'll get into some of those. Matthew, actually, you ran a podcast back in the day, didn't you?
I did back in the day. I did like 30 or 40 episodes of a podcast.
Young and Elite.
Like, I don't know what that was, 2014, something like that. Yeah, Young and Elite is what it was. I was interviewing entrepreneurs under the age of 30. Specifically, what my goal was is to figure out how people got successful young. And so I just went to the Forbes 30 under 30 and emailed every single person on the list. And surprisingly, most people were willing to do an interview. So I got a bunch of these successful entrepreneurs under 30 and talked to them about how they were able to be successful early on. So it was a really, really fun way to learn the ins and outs of entrepreneurship at an early age. And I'm really glad I did that. So for those 30 to 40 episodes, it was very helpful.
Matthew, I don't know if I told you, but I actually, before I even met you, I actually listened to one of the podcasts. I think it was with a glass girl, the girl that did.
Yeah, she has glass in Denver, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Michael Glass. Yeah.
I forget her name, but I actually listened to that podcast. And then I think it was either you or Caleb brought up the podcast. And I was like, what? That's so crazy. I had already listened to your podcast before you.
That is really crazy. I never knew that before. Yeah, that was an interesting story. Most people don't get into glass recycling at a young age. That was a really interesting. I remember that one. That was pretty cool.
Well, I'm glad you interviewed me back then because I'm no longer even close to 30. So I've passed that. I'm no longer young.
I don't, you were one of my first three. Were you my very first guest or one of my first three? I forget.
First guest. I think I was number 2 or 3. We'd have to look that up. But
I know you were within the first 3. Yeah. That's how this whole thing started. You never got away from me after that. I just kept chasing you down.
Nope. Here we are.
All right, guys. What are we drinking?
Well, first of all, I'd like to introduce, we do have a sponsor as well. I've been trying to get a sponsor for the show. And this is an unpaid sponsorship. This is just how much I love it. And Matthew and I were talking about it pre-show. So we are sponsored by homestarrunner.com. And for those of you that are over the age of, well, if you're under the age of like 28, you probably have no idea what this is. So go check out homestarrunner.com.
Miles,
I promise.
Homestar Runner, I'm just curious.
I don't know. Is it a game? It looks like a game.
Oh boy, no. This is one of the original. I don't even know what it's called. It's not a podcast. It was kind of a fan mail cartoon type thing. So if you don't know what it is, I promise, go spend an hour, click around. You can just go to YouTube as well and type in Homestar Runner, and it is epic. You'll like it. You have a good sense of humor. Some other people might just think it's a waste of time. But
you'll like it. You might lose a few points of IQ, but it'll be worth it for the experience. So
it is definitely working. Well, I'll kick things off. We'll go around the horn. David, I took heed of your wisdom because you said if we stop drinking bourbon, we have to drop the bourbon from the name. So here we go. This is Taconic Distillery. So Miles, kind of a tip of the hat. This is from New York. I tried to get something close to Pennsylvania. I believe the Taconic Mountains are part of the Appalachian Range. So this is a double barrel maple bourbon. So I'm assuming it's going to have a lot of sweet elements to it. It's 115 proof, so it should have a little bit of heat. And I went to their website to learn more about them. And I think they said they're the official bourbon of Maxim magazine. yes, that Maxim magazine. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's what I will be sampling today.
Nice. Well, I can go next. I've got this. I don't know if I've had this in the show yet. It's one of my favorites, but it's a Willet 4-year. It's a rye. Let's see if it focuses right there. There we go. Yeah, Willet 4-year. It's 110 proof, so you beat me by a little bit there, Caleb. But it is up there too. This one I've purchased probably more expensive than I probably should have, but I see this one all over the place price wise. I don't know where you've seen this one, Caleb, for the 4-year Willet bourbon before, but it's like I found it somewhere I wasn't expecting to. I think it was like Sam's Club for $60 or $70 one time. I'm pretty sure I paid close to 90 for that because it's 90 most other places, but you can find some good deals on it occasionally. But even though it's a little strong, it's really, really good. It's really, really smooth, and I just like this bourbon a lot. It's great for sitting and sipping.
Love it.
I had to run out and actually grab what I was drinking. I'm drinking this again. This is my Trader Joe's instant coffee. 2022 is a great year.
Is that aged 4 years?
No, it's this year. It's a really great year.
Okay.
But yeah, I go through 2 cups of this every day. So
Bottled and bond instant coffee. Love to see it.
yep.
And Miles, what are you drinking today?
I just got some water for the boys today. Just old
All right.
school, nice and simple.
You're
Nice.
protecting your liver. There's that.
Oh,
That's
yes,
something
man.
to-
Yeah.
something to celebrate. Well, cheers, fellas. Excited to kick off episode 11 here.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Definitely some good maple elements. All right, Miles, let's dive into your story. Kind of make you front and center here. Matthew had to explain that I can click your photo and get it to go
Yeah,
to go big screen.
yeah.
So that's good. There's a lot of hidden things here in StreamYard. So how old are you? Let's start there. And where do you live?
Yeah, 23, and I live in Pennsylvania.
And then just briefly walk us through. You've got a number of streams of income, but what are your main buckets for your streams of income? And then we'll
Yeah,
kinda get
so
to
the cash cow, since I kind of started figuring things out like a year and a half ago or so, is just straight online arbitrage. Like with Amazon, I do a lot of like clothing, apparel, shoes, that kind of thing. So just straight OA, some prep center in there. And then throughout that whole process, and even prior to kind of figuring out Amazon or at least online arbitrage, I've been doing the personal brand. So for Flips4Miles for 3.5 years at this point. And then a little bit of, or as of August, I've had a course my partner Warner and I do, and then some other stuff in that space around the personal brand. And then I co-own an online arbitrage sourcing software called SellerAmp.
Awesome. So a very wide variety. Looks like most of them are kind of in the Amazon ecosystem. So we'll talk through some investment strategies as we talk about scaling up. So depending on where you are in your own journey, for those of you that are watching, I know some of you are kind of tire kickers. Maybe you haven't gotten started yet. We'll kind of share the genesis story and some watch outs and some things you can learn as you are starting out, or maybe if you haven't quite yet started. And then for some of the more advanced ones, Miles has kind of graduated through the ropes of doing books quickly. Books are a great way to get started. I know that you advocate to a lot of other people that books are kind of where you should get started. And many people keep that as an income stream. They'll kind of ramp up into bulk books or kind of switch gears and get into retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, or others. And so we love our role. We like to help kickstart entrepreneurs. And being an entrepreneur is scary. I used to think that everybody was an entrepreneur, and then you started, meeting other people and realized that we are a rare breed indeed, which is why we tend to flock together and love to just meet with other people as well. So, Miles, when did you first hear about Amazon? When did you kind of get started? Walk us through that. Like what led up to that point in your life?
So I've actually been like reselling stuff since like 2011, like and more so not even necessarily reselling stuff, but just like trading online with people. From 2011 to like 2018, I was trading Legos with people like crazy, basically like just through a site called Flickr, which is now owned by Yahoo, which is similar to Instagram and everything. But I just really liked doing business, trading with people, buying stuff, arbitraging different things. So I was always doing that pretty much like ever since I was like 10 or 11 or 12 there. And then in 2014, one of the kids I was doing the Legos with, trading back and forth, he was like, dude, like I have all these nice shoes. I'm like, how you getting them? He's like, I've been reselling them, trading with people the same way we do with Legos, just on a bigger scale. So I started doing that. That same kid ended up taking $500 from me pretty much the same month. Yeah, the same month but the key was that he added me to all the Facebook groups that I then did business in like the next 3 years. And then I started kind of figuring that out, like $1,000 profit a month. I remember I hit that for the first time in March of 2018. Then September 2018, YouTube algorithm, man, it hits me. Guy travels country with canoe on top of his car interview, and our boy Avery right there. And so I listened to that in probably September, October of 2018. I was like, damn, you can sell stuff on Amazon. Like, these guys are selling all different types of stuff. And pretty much that was also the point where I started kind of just learning about business, like reading like the Rich Dad Poor Dad's The 4-Hour Workweek. So the run, and kind of just realizing like what I was doing was kind of entrepreneurial, that I'd just been doing like half of my life anyway, up until that point. And then summer of 2019, I was working as an unpaid intern, which was like required for my degree or whatever. And I was like, you know, man, I'm like living by myself in my college town. I might as well start that Amazon thing those guys were talking about and everything. So I started doing that and kind of just hit the ground running. Actually, previous guest to the show, John Side Hustle Experiment, and I posted on my Instagram one of the Goodwill shelves, like just a picture of it. And it turns out he lived in the same town and we got together. And yeah, so him I've known since like day one, basically, and everything. And then
That's really cool.
Yeah. So I did books throughout 2019, 2020. We all know what hit then. So I kind of stopped doing it, at least like in terms of I just couldn't get inventory and stuff. And then I ended up still doing like 30K of sales or whatever. So like 10 grand of profit in 2020, which was fine at the time for like I was in college or whatever. And then I was still doing the personal brand the whole time, even though I'm not doing Amazon actively day to day. One, I'm getting sales from the inventory that was still in stock, whatever. Not a lot, but still some. So I still saw it working, just not to the scale I wanted it to. And then in like December of 2020, people started online to talk about like ungating big brands, right? Which I previously didn't know how to do. And then ended up doing like the Nike Adidas ungates February 2021. Was watching a Gary Vee video. He's like, you better be responding to every comment. I hadn't even been responding to every comment. So I was like, you know, Gary Vee, I'm going to message everyone that comments on that pic. And I ended up messaging Garrett, who's now my partner in the podcast. And we've pretty much talked ever since then, every single day for a year and a half. We would Zoom probably the 6 months after that. We Zoomed every day, sourcing together. We had spreadsheets of shared leads and all that. And pretty much that group chat of 4 guys since then, we've probably done like between like 12 to like 14 mil of sales combined in like the year and a half or so since. And I'm only like 2 of that. But those guys were great. And we kind of just formed a nucleus and combined all the knowledge and just all shot up. Like we all hit 100K a month in sales within the same month, which was July and August of last year. And it's kind of just been that way since.
I just like to say real fast, your story right then is exactly, have you heard Mr. Beast talk about his story? Ever Mr. Beast, the YouTuber? Have you heard him talk about how he became so famous on YouTube?
I think he's lagged out, man.
I think he's stuck there. Anyways, Mr. Beast, there's listener podcast. He's the same thing. He said right when he started, he partnered with 4 guys. They Zoomed every single day. They did this for years, and within like 2 months of each other, they all hit 1 million subscribers together. And it was like this group that started from nothing and Zoomed every day, all day, talking about thumbnails and titles and figuring out the business together. And so that's awesome. That's like the exact same story you had, just on Amazon versus YouTube. It's really, really cool to see that.
Oh yeah, and my bad. The connection just bad in the other room. I wasn't sure if it would hit, but yeah, I know that exact story you're talking about. Just catching the end of it, I am familiar with that, definitely. But yeah, that's so important. That's why I'm so big on everyone I talk to that's like just getting into it. I say like start a social media page as well, because you can post once a month, whatever, but it's leverage that then shows the people who you inevitably DM questions that you're living the life, and that helps the answers. Speaking anecdotally, if I see someone's actually doing it, it drastically improves the quality of answers they get, just because I know it's like worth the time to invest into it. And it's kind of a shallow answer on that, but it's true. And that's why I'm so big on the personal branding and doing the content side of things too.
Well, we mentioned this last week too, but the idea of if you want to go far, go together. And if you want to go fast, go alone. And so the idea, whether you get business partners or even just people that you can engage with or network with, I'm down here in Arkansas. I'm hanging out, doing a little consulting and doing a little golfing, but there's some booksellers in the area too. And Kyle, I don't know if he'll be watching, but hi, Kyle. He's become a good friend. He uses our software. He's a bulk bookseller. He dabbles in a bunch of things, from a brewery to like an eye clinic to like auto parts distributing. So he's just a serial entrepreneur. And every time I meet, I'm just like re-energized, and we just chat through different ideas and what we're learning and what stocks we're losing money on, because we're both good at that. But the more you network with other people, the better. And for those of you that are shy or maybe more cautious to do it, that's a beautiful idea that you can just use like Instagram and Facebook. You don't have to be super social and outgoing and go to events. Miles, I think you and I met at the Miami meetup, and if you can attend an in-person meetup, that's huge. Because if someone sees your face on social media and then meets you in person, that just adds that much more credibility to who you are, and that just kind of furthers and deepens the relationship. But if you're not a great in-person talker, that's fine. You can still kind of have your presence out on social media, and that's going to lead to deals. It's going to lead to meeting the right people, getting the right ideas, and so that's huge. I know Gary Vee talks about that quite a bit as well. So let's dive back all the way to the beginning. You were 11 or 12 years old doing Lego trading. Like you didn't have a car, you can't drive at this point. Was this all through the mail, or how were you how did I actually walk through the specifics of like the first little bit of making money with Legos?
You might
Yeah. And we froze him right at a great spot there, but he'll be back here in just a second.
Yeah.
He was about to answer. There we go.
Oh, my bad again. I don't know why it's being poor, but yeah. So literally, I just mailed a check for the first time. But the thing was, there's the same way there's a reseller community, there's a really big Lego community too, and there's all types of conventions and stuff. So that was a really big part of my life for a while, and I actually still keep in touch with a few of the people. But yeah, I was just trading stuff with people. There's the same way there's Scat IQ is a proprietary software to Amazon sellers. There's proprietary Lego tools to Lego people. And we would trade a lot of those. They did a really good job commanding demand for it. So it made a lot of scarcity on stuff, and they were just such a hot commodity. It was so fun. But yeah, and then eventually just did that for a few years, and then people were talking about shoes. Let me try that. Dude ended up taking a bunch of money from me, but I think that was probably the best $500 I've ever lost.
Well, good thing you didn't give up. I'm sure that felt like a pile of money back then, and it'd be easy to kind of play the victim card and say, hey, this isn't for me, and I should just go get a traditional job. Now, you've got a little history of entrepreneurship in your family. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that upbringing?
Yeah. So my grandpa was really successful, and that it was kind of a thing where when we visit them, which it was lucky we still get to and everything, it's a different level of lifestyle and everything. So I kind of see what happens if you really go hard for a while and really invest in stuff. So that's cool to see. And he was the entrepreneur route, and then my dad and mom are employees and everything, but still very conscious of the stuff we talk about and everything, excited about what I'm doing and everything. So I'm kind of a risk of a mix of a very conservative nature of saving money and such, but with the risk taking in my active income of being an entrepreneur and such.
Yeah. Billy says the guy that stole your money is watching the pod right now.
Dude, oh man. And what's crazy is I wasn't doing it to make money, so I didn't really care. I was pissed, but it was, I don't know. And I was also 14 or 15 or whatever. So I honestly didn't really care, but weird. I still kind of keep in touch with them too. It's it's so weird. It's a weird relationship and everything, but every few years, for some reason I end up talking to him.
That sounds like a toxic relationship. I'm just going to advise you.
I know. Yeah. It's weird.
Clear. So at what point did it change from kind of the hobby and the thrill of the hunt in terms of just finding Lego sets and completing them and kind of making the trades? At what point was the aha moment where you said, wait a second, this could actually become something that makes money for me?
Yeah, so I was doing the shoe stuff a lot more seriously in 2017 and 2018 because I was at college now, so I couldn't do any of the Lego stuff, which was previously my main hobby. And the big thing was that in 2018, so I did freshman year was 2017, 2018. Start of sophomore year in 2018, my best friend from the previous year transferred, and then the second semester my other top 3 or 4 best friends half them transferred as well, so all my time was freed up on stuff, and I just started going hard. To be honest, I just started going to outlets all the time and stuff, and ended up I made $5,000 profit one month, which back then was enormous.
Well, especially in college when most kids don't have a lot of cash.
Oh, yeah.
And what were you studying in college?
I went to a liberal arts school, so just the standard business major or whatever.
And was there a goal to do something else other than run your own business?
So it was the first year I had no idea what I wanted to do, 2017, 2018. And then come 2019 and late 2018, when I started making a little bit of money, I started like learning about online business and like the different paths that exist, but I had no idea. Like I never even got hit with Ty Lopez ads like back in the day. Like stuff like that's like I really, really was not in it at all. And then like 2018, I was like started thinking of you know, I can probably do this if I can sustain it and everything and grow it after that. And that's when I started taking extra classes to graduate early. And then COVID hit and like I started like figuring out kinda, and then right when I finished college, early December 2020, it was like February and March and April is when I started figuring stuff out, and it's kind of been like decent ever since then and grown.
Yeah. I love charting kind of the path and the history of entrepreneurs from, they call them like woodshed moments. So you're going along a path and then you learn about something, whether it's shoes or like online arbitrage or books or what have you. And there's a million ideas. Matthew and I joke all the time that you can make money doing anything. And I really like wholeheartedly believe that. And I haven't found any counter examples yet. You can turn anything into a business. You talked about Legos. There's a couple kids that went to my college. I think it's called Beyond the Brick. And they're really,
I know those guys. Like those guys are awesome. They wouldn't know me, but I know them from like those guys are awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So they go to like shows and they do these crazy builds and they document it on YouTube, and their YouTube channel blew up to the point where they're making like probably 5 figures a month off YouTube.
I'll send you the link to, I have a couple Beyond the Brick interviews over the years, actually.
Okay. I think it's two guys, right?
So I don't know. I've been out of it for like 4 years, but there were 2 guys and then they like split, and both are cool though. Both were really cool. And I assume there's a couple guys now, but yeah, those guys are awesome. Yeah.
I think it's the right name. I didn't meet them, but they're, you know, I went to a small liberal arts college as well, and they're from my school. And they were kind of featured in one of the magazines. So you can do whatever you love. I was watching, I think it's either Billions. That's a great show. If anybody hasn't seen it, it's phenomenal. It's on, I think it's on HBO. You can find it on Hulu. And then I was watching, don't put me on the spot. Something about Lincoln Lawyer. It was an old movie with Matthew McConaughey, and now it's a TV series. And one of the things in there said, like, the 3 things you got to figure out in life is, what do you want, what do you believe, and when are you going to take action? And one of the hard parts is just figuring out what you want. That's an important piece. And so it's kind of fun tracing the history of entrepreneurs and saying, hey, here's an idea. You can make money doing it. Is it time to take action? And then decide whether to jump in. And I'm a huge fan of just tinkering. Try something. Try flipping books. Try flipping shoes. Try doing a blog. Try doing a YouTube channel. Try all these different things and see which ones you enjoy, which ones get traction, and then kind of go further down that rabbit trail and see what happens. So when did you sell your first item on Amazon? Let's jump back into that.
Yeah, it was probably 3 years ago this week or 3 years ago next week.
Okay. And what was the first thing you sold on Amazon?
Yeah, so it was all books, dude. I mean, for whatever reason, I was like scared to sell anything. I couldn't ungate anything, so I did all books the first year and a half, pretty much.
And is that because you saw the Canoe Boy video with Avery?
Yeah, pretty much. And that was I like learned about all you guys then. So I've been following all you guys for a while and everything. But it was pretty much that I just didn't think I could sell anything else. Like the ungating methods weren't out there the way they are today.
Yeah, so kind of it's funny how the market and the landscape has changed in just 3 years. Like 3 years in tech and e-commerce, especially with COVID happening, is sort of an eternity. So,
Definitely.
All right. So you were in college at the time then, and where were you getting the books from? Were you kind of leveraging the on-campus experience and working for your buddies, or were you going to thrift stores? Like where were you sourcing?
Yeah, kind of all of it. I was doing a lot of thrift stores. I was actually lucky that the college I went to is much closer to a major city than like where I live now. So like that was cool, or not major city, but it was like kind of state capital of Pennsylvania. So it was like kind of, but yeah, a lot of thrift stores. And then end of semesters, I was grinding books, like annoying people like crazy on stuff. And all those were the people that didn't believe in me now, or didn't believe in what I'd be able to do would work. And luckily it did and everything. But yeah, it was kind of everything, all the above, a lot of the different strategies outside of bulk.
Did you ever dumpster dive in the college dumpsters for books?
Oh, no, but there's like all types of stuff. Like there was a lot of creativity involved in it. Definitely.
All right, let's hear. So for those that are kind of just getting started, I know you're not doing books as much anymore. Do you mind sharing some of those like creative tactics that someone else?
Oh yeah. So
I live in a small town. I can't find books.
Yeah. So my parents are teachers at a private school, so I've gotten a ton from that over the years. Facebook Marketplace, like posting on Snapchat and everything.
And then, yeah, I would have like people on certain teams like text like the group chat, say who has textbooks, like hit up my boy here. What I actually probably made a couple $1,000 doing that. That was pretty effective at the end of the semesters.
Yeah. So networking, kind of leveraging your friends, so to speak.
Oh, yeah.
And were you doing any merchant fulfilled, or was this all FBA, kicking it all out to
All
warehouse?
FBA. Yeah, I just didn't know any better. I mean, now I do a ton of merchant fulfilled, especially seasonally. But yeah, back then it was just all FBA.
What talk us through sales a little bit. What was one of your best months? Obviously, if you're selling a bunch of textbooks, then August, September, and January tend to be really good. Was there like a really good month where you kind of said, hey, wait a second, like this could be my future after college?
I actually really don't think so on the books. I just knew that online business would be it, you know? The most I did with books was probably like eight or like 11 or something in grand in sales, which is probably like January 2020 was the biggest month. But it was more so just that I was just starting to get more and more involved in like following people online that were doing online business in general. And I was like, something will work, like something will work. And look, it ironically ended up being the exact same stuff I was doing back in 2011, just arbitraging different things and making a bunch of content about it essentially.
Yeah, it's funny. I think it's fascinating how the jobs you have in the past sort of lead into the jobs that you have today. A lot of the skills I picked up working for an orthopedic company doing marketing are literally apply. I actually helped build an iPad application the first year that an iPad was created and came out. And so I'm not a coder. I worked and kind of worked with the designers and the developers. And obviously that skill has paid off today. Dave or Matthew, either of you, kind of your past jobs have kind of led into what you're doing today. Do you guys ever see that trend happening as well?
So when I was 14 years old, I have two younger sisters, and they had a bunch of friends, and every weekend all their friends would come over, and I'd be the oldest kid, and I was like 13 or 14, and like one summer I created this like currency on scrap paper, and I like put gold foil on it, and I called this game Davidtopia, where you do work and you earn this currency I give you, and you can buy snacks with that. And so literally one summer, like these kids would like clean my room, and like I had them doing all these things, trying to earn this currency that, it was just a sheet of paper that I put gold on, and they would be able to buy snacks from our snack cupboard, which I wasn't even paying for. My mom was. And I don't know how that parallels with what I'm doing now.
I think this is going to lead to you starting your own nation.
Or counterfeiting, one of the two.
Yeah, maybe. But what's funny is like my sister started counterfeiting my thing and started injecting her own money into the system.
Oh, no.
But I think from a young age, like I like the idea of managing and not necessarily like telling people what to do, but just like getting people coordinated in like one unified mission. So I'd say there's a parallel between what I did back then and what I'm doing now, except I have to use real money now.
Yeah.
Well, allegedly. You were also quite a tinker. I know Miles has kind of bounced back and forth between, different ideas and stuff. And I'm sure he's failed. We'll talk about some failures here in a second, because that's always fun to learn from other people's mistakes. But, the key is to fail forward. Dave, I remember some interesting stories. Probably won't share all of them here right now, but I remember some of the fun stories when you and I first met about some of your drop shipping experiments and just the idea of going, hey, let's just tinker and test this idea, and then holy crap, it works, and just scale it up. And of course, it had some consequences as well. But it's really fun to see that trend in entrepreneurs, is the idea of just try something. And, if it works, great. If it doesn't, try and cover your bases best you can and learn, and then go try it again. Matthew, did some of your past experiences, I know you work for a natural gas company and did like an annual subscription service. Any of those things, do you see some parallels into what it led you to today?
Yeah, well, it actually goes all the way back to high school. So like in high school, I was always trying to start different businesses around hobbies that I enjoyed. So like, I think when I was like 11, 12, 13, somewhere in there, I loved skateboarding. So I'm going to start a skateboard brand. And so I had to figure out how to make a website, and then I had to figure out how to do graphics design for a logo and figure out all these different things. Then I'd take those things and apply it to the next thing I did. And then by the time I got to college, I had a decent skill set in building websites, doing graphics design, doing social media. So I just sought after jobs that allowed me to do that and got better at that through college. And I was able to get my job at that natural gas or the welding and gas supply company because they had an opening for marketing. And I said, they're lacking in digital marketing at the time in their business. So I said, I can do digital marketing. I've got these skill sets. I've learned how to do this. This is what I think I can kind of do for the business and learn more there. And of course, now with Scout IQ, I've been doing marketing with Scout IQ and the same type of things there. So it's kind of transferred all the way from high school all the way up here, just kind of pursuing similar things around marketing and just learning more and more along the way. And each thing I take, I build on to the next thing. Like that ammo subscription company you mentioned, that same launch sequence that worked there, we applied to Scout IQ and stuff like that. So yeah, it all intertwines, and it's a pretty crazy thing to think back on.
Yeah. So for those of you that have day jobs still, or maybe you're dreaming of being an entrepreneur and haven't jumped in, I think one of the important takeaways is just perfect your craft, whatever that is, whether it's marketing or engineering or whatever you're working on, whatever your passions are, explore those, dive in as deep as you can, because those skills, we learned this in college, they really emphasize what they call transferable skills. And it's the idea, like what Miles was doing. He was learning how to interact with people, how to buy and sell, how to look at markets with Legos, transferred that over to books. Those same skills with books then have allowed him to transfer to the next part of his story, which we'll get to in just a second. So whatever you're passionate about, whatever you're enjoying, go deep down that rabbit hole. I feel like we say rabbit hole 8 or 9 times in an episode, but there's just something to it. And for one, I know that I'm drawn to people that pursue excellence. I don't care what it is. You could be like crazy into crocheting or like field hockey or underwater basket weaving. It doesn't matter. But if someone's that excited about it, there's just an energy and just that draw to, like, I want to be part of their world somehow. I want to just see why they're so excited. So find something that gets you excited. And Miles, do you drink a lot of coffee, Miles? Because you always have a lot of energy.
So it's partially just that, like, whenever you make content, you have a lot of energy, on stuff. But honestly, no, I just like, try to get in as much during the day and then relax a lot as well. But it's mainly, there's a lot of energy oriented around the content just because people need, I feel like there's such a demand for this type of content. There's so few of us making it that, like, we just have such a, I guess, like, obligation to really make it the best as possible and, like, light up people's days. There's a lot of negativity in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And we live in such a great time that whatever you're excited about, there is a blog, there is several YouTube channels, there is something for everybody. And TikTok's really highlighted it. I love pulling up TikTok and seeing, like, the life of a farmer. And I live in Indiana. I could go knock on somebody's door and they'd probably be delighted to share, how they're doing their crops and their animals. But you can just literally through the phone, kind of, Periscope used to be an app, probably still is, but you can literally just jot into a foreign country, into a different career, and just learn something about, everything. So Jose has a question. There's non-Miles questions as well. If you do have questions, we will do like a rapid fire. They can be related to anything, Scout IQ, Miles haircut. We can talk about whatever. So if you do have questions, drop those. If we don't get to them right now, we will come back at the end and kind of do a Q&A. So Jose says, how much capital did you start OA with? But I want to, before you answer that, how much capital did you start Books with? So you're in college, you probably don't have a pile of cash, although you were entrepreneurial. What did you start your book journey with? And then how did you kind of make sure you squirreled away money? And then, what did that lead to when it was time to start OA?
Yeah, so it was 2019. So I remember having like 20 grand in my bank account in like September. So I was like right after I had started. And that's the thing, I had made a decent amount of money with shoes prior to that, or at least for like up to that point in my life. But it's hard to spend 20 grand on books, at least when you're like cherry picking and stuff. You know what I mean? So I never really put much money into it. Total cost of goods was probably like, sub 5 grand or so. And I wasn't doing any type of volume either for that whole year. But I comfortable enough where I didn't hesitate to get Scout IQ immediately, that kind of stuff and everything.
Yeah. So a couple grand at your disposal is really good. Yes. And one of the most important things is living at a margin. So when you were flipping Legos and kind of building that asset of your bank account, did you have the goal of doing a business later? Like, what stopped you from just spending that money on, food and well, not booze, but women and clothes, whatever else a teenager wants to spend money on.
Yeah, so it was kind of more so just that I've never really cared about like looks or anything too. Like I definitely would buy a lot of shoes to like play basketball and stuff. But the goal wasn't to make money. Like I didn't start trying to make money till like 2018, I think. And I was compounding like through, different Lego asset classes for like 7 years at that point. And everything. So like, and that's the thing too, like it was actually really easy. Looking back, I could have made a ridiculous amount. If I got into Legos with what I know, I could have made a whole bunch of money with that. Back then when the Lego economy was much different than it is now. And it was a lot bigger back then too, I think. Or more centralized. But yeah, and then I just wasn't really trying to make money with it or whatever. So I just never ended up spending a lot of it. And also too, Lego is incredibly expensive to do good stuff, like incredibly expensive to do well on stuff, just because like you need specific parts that are limited and everything. And so the nice thing was like all that stuff held value, but I had a ton. My whole net worth was in Legos to like 2018, basically.
Hey, better. I don't know if that would be better than Bitcoin, but yeah, you can throw it in stuff. David is kind of into watches. We've been kind of joking about the Rolex market, but it's starting to kind of taper off. The bubble's starting to come back down. We're seeing, of course, Bitcoin, Ethereum come down a bit. So it's interesting seeing asset classes over time. I know Legos are still pretty popular. We've got some other booksellers, Dasha and I think Shane are really into Legos as well. I know there's a really good underground culture of Lego.
Oh, yeah, there is with everything. And it's no different. Yeah, it's just like my whole generation, we all started in like 2011 to like 20. Those were the 2013, 2014 were the prime years. And then it was kind of like people 4 years older than me go to college, then 3 years older than me, then 2 years older than me, then I go. And it's some people still go, but it's so much less to like conventions and stuff than what it used to be back in the day. But it was really a time I'll always look back on so favorably in my life.
I love it. So one of my mantras is the concept of startup, scale up, and then step back. So it's kind of that idea of tinker, test a lot of things, see what works. So just kind of get started. Don't worry about figuring out the entire business plan. Don't worry about getting an LLC. Like all those things, they're important, sure, but you can kind of usually go back in time and kind of make it right. So just get started, find something, flip it, and then see if you can repeat it. Then you try and scale it up. So you kind of knew that, finding Legos worked, then you got into books. Talk us through the scaling phase, because I think you went out, and if I remember correctly, you went and kind of tried to build a little bit of a scout army.
Yeah, man. Scout.
So talk us through, right? You knew books worked, right? And again, it's hard to find a ton of books and dump 20 grand into books that unless you're doing bulk, then that's just an average Tuesday. But what things did you try and do to attempt to scale books up that other people can maybe learn from?
Yeah, so that was the big thing, was the hiring a bunch of sourcers, and not necessarily hiring, more so just giving them Scout IQ logins and then having them sell on consignment. So that actually probably ended up, it was definitely profitable. And I think I actually probably made like $5 grand doing that during 2020 and everything. That was the big thing. And then COVID hit, so that was cut off like, immediately or whatever. Like I had like 60 Scout IQ accounts, I think, at the peak.
Now, were you leveraging your Instagram platform to find these people?
Definitely. Oh, yeah, definitely.
You couldn't put 60 people locally to go find books.
No, it was all over. Yeah, Facebook, Instagram. Yeah, definitely.
So you gave them a login. What was the process? Did they scan it? Was it hidden mode? Like, walk us through a little bit of the specifics for those that want to scale a team.
I literally haven't thought of this since the day I shut it down, I think. But I assume I set triggers. And then I just like gave them an SOP and said like scan all the books with this app, this login. That kind of thing. And it was probably, I don't know. I mean, I know, like, years later, you could have done it. I could have done so much better doing it over again. Like, I definitely wouldn't go that rude. But yeah, I don't know. I think I was just telling people to just scan like everything, to be honest.
And would they ship it to you or what was the process?
Yeah. So then it was shipped to me and then I'd send it in and everything. So for the people that would actually work, like they all made money and everything.
And then how were you paying them? Was it cost plus? Was it just a flat rate per book that met your criteria?
Yeah, 50-50 after cost of goods. Or no, 50-50 before cost of goods, I think.
So you were tracking everything and then you'd pay them.
Come on. Tracking spreadsheet, baby. Everyone listening, go buy that. Tracking spreadsheet. I hope the link's in the description, but if it's not, you should put it there. That's how I was doing it. Yeah, oh my man. Yeah, there we go. Tracking spreadsheet indeed.
Well, and if you are watching, you can put coupon code bonus50, bonus50, and say $50. So it's a one-time fee. If you do consignment, that really is my primary business model at this point. And I love consignment. People go do the work you mentioned SOP, which is standard operating procedure. It's literally just a checklist. Here's the rules. Here's what you got to do. Here's what happens when you find good books. Here's what the screen looks like. And the more detailed you can be to put that together, the easier it is to scale the business. So there is work and organization that goes into it. So of the 60 people, I know that you got kind of run into with COVID and that got shut down, but roughly, was it like 1 in 3, 1 in 4? Like how many actually would send you a box of books?
Yeah, I'd say it was probably between 1 in 3 and 1 in 4.
Okay.
And I think the nice thing was there wasn't really much risk because I think it was only like $12 or something for a month of scout. I think it's like 12 or 14. So there was really very, very low risk for it and everything. But yeah, so that's like probably like 1 or 3, 1 out of 4 made money.
Yeah, so that tended to be the case. I tried to build a scout team as well back when I was originally trying to scale this up. And I think at my peak, I probably had 12. It wasn't 60, but I probably had 12 to 15 scouts in like 8 different states. And it was kind of the same ratios. Probably 1 in 3, 1 in 4 would actually do okay and start sending books in. And one of the things I learned, so if you guys want to build a scout team, one, you don't want to get too many people in your own backyard unless you live in a big city that can absorb lots of scouts. I think the best way to do it, if I had to go back over again, would be to build a library sale team that can jump in the same van, kind of start at a headquarters, and you probably get a Sprinter van or rent a U-Haul if you had to, or just a mom's minivan. Nothing wrong with that. And I would build a small team, 4 or 5 people. One person would be a runner and just move the boxes in the sale and make sure everybody's ready and kind of stay in front of that. And I'd have 3 or 4 people just scanning and go in like locusts and just destroy a sale. So that if I had to build a team, I think that's the most economical way to do it. You can share gas costs, buy them all food, go there, be there for the preview sale, of course. And then I would do that. I think the second best option is kind of what you did, where you take what you have. You had your own brand, you had your own reach on social media. And I'm sure you put a story out and said, hey, if you want to work for me and split profits, I'll run the account, I'll manage pricing, I'll manage listing. All you got to do is go find books. And it sounds like you had enough people take you up on that offer.
Yeah, it's definitely. I probably had like a couple thousand followers at the time. And yeah, it's crazy. That was I was in 2020. That feels like 10 years ago. Like the other stuff doesn't feel that long ago. That feels crazy long ago.
It's crazy how fast things can turn.
Yeah.
Okay, so you went from books, COVID set in, and you weren't able to, of course, send books in. We couldn't do that at all. At what point did you kind of make that transition and say, all right, it's time to switch gears?
Yeah, so I spent most of 2020. I started like tweeting and stuff. So I started meeting people on like what's called like money Twitter. Basically, it's like the community of like entrepreneurs, similar to Instagram, except it's way more community based because it's on Twitter. And everything. And everyone was talking about like doing a service business. So I spent like a good part of 2020 like selling Facebook ads as a service. And once again, that stuff I probably made like $3 to $5 grand a month in profit total. So I was like making money, and I was finishing up college at the time, but nothing significant. And luckily, my parents believed in me to let me try it full time after that. And then pretty quickly within the first few months of being full time, stuff really started clicking, like close to 5-figure profit months, and then that as of last summer and everything since then.
Awesome. So you have a Amazon course. Do you want to talk through that a little bit and kind of give a plug and what prompted you to do that? You're kind of inviting competition on one hand, right?
Yeah. So basically similar story on the just DMing people. Warner and I, and actually a bunch of other people I know now, we would have Zoom calls last year all throughout the spring. There was a group chat with like 30 of us, and I just plug a Zoom link. Everyone would join and everything. And then Warner and I started a Discord together and did like, that says like 20,000, I think it's like 28,000 members now and everything. And it kind of just made sense to put something together and structure it right, give a money back guarantee, make it good and everything, and just, provide a good quality product. And we launched that in February, and that's been doing well. It's a bunch of people finding success with it and everything. But yeah, so we started that in February. It's like, I think month 4 or 5 or so, and that's going well.
Fantastic. So I know you have a big eye toward investments as well. And if you guys do have questions for Miles, go ahead and drop those, and we will kind of do a Q&A here. We'll kind of wrap up the interview and move toward a couple other segments here before we wind things down. So if you do have questions, drop those in, whether you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube. And if you're listening to this after the fact, you're still welcome to drop questions. We do kind of monitor those, and Miles does a pretty good job circling back around. So do that as well. we have somebody that's part of the launch pad that's here watching.
Yeah, that's
So
the Discord. Yeah, that dude. So what's crazy is that dude, he does the same Goodwills that John and I used to do. It's all in the same like little suburb of Harrisburg. Actually, I'm a big used book guy.
that's fantastic. So walk us through a little bit in terms of investments. We've got a little bit of a crash right now, just a pullback in terms of the stock market. So one of the downsides of David and me and Matthew and our partners, most of our income is related to Amazon, right? So, and it's a great business, it's phenomenal, but we always live a little bit in fear of the Amazon sandbox. It's their box. We just get to play in it. They set the rules. And when they say it's time to change or decide to change the rules and mess with restock limits or just decide to kind of cut off your access, they can do that. So, we make money, all of us selling books, we make money with the software, but that's in the Amazon space. Your income streams are, doing OA, you still got some books probably still selling. And then you've got the course, which is all tied to Amazon, and then a little bit of software. What are you looking at that's outside of the Amazon space? Have you looked at that, or are you okay and comfortable with your risk all being in Amazon's hands?
Yeah. So I think from like an income perspective, I'm pretty comfortable being like, I had like the actual Amazon business and then like the personal brand. Those are completely mutually exclusive of each other. Outside of Amazon, big structural rules with like ungating or like different stuff like that. And who knows, that might 5 years from now, that might end up, we all look like idiots or something, but I am pretty confident in it and everything. And then, yeah, like back 2020, I started learning a lot about like the financial independence movement and everything, like index funds and stuff like that. And I was definitely way too focused on that back in the day, but it was good to learn and everything. And I kind of spent the past, since like 2021, I've been way more focused on growing the active income side of things, like just the business and everything. And that's actually allowed me to then invest a lot more and everything. I pretty much just buy index funds still since back in the day and everything. But eventually I'll diversify out of that. But I just see so much power and control in that I can decide to grow the Amazon side of things. So that's where I just try to keep my focus, at least for now.
Yeah. And how do you decide when you do make profit from Amazon each month, or do you get paid daily or every other week?
Yeah, typically daily. And the way OA works is it's not a good business for free cash flow and everything. So I pretty much always compounded most of the Amazon money. And then like any personal brand or stuff like that, that's free cash flow that I get to just invest or whatever, spend on stuff.
Yeah. So how do you make that decision on what to invest back into the business versus what to pull out and put into index funds or other channels?
Yeah, so it's seasonal. So I for a while, the whole first half of last year, 2021, I didn't I didn't invest anything. I was just compounding the Amazon money and everything. And I kind of just learned that I was always happier and felt better taking some money off the table, even if it meant sacrificing a little bit of compounding on the Amazon side of things and everything. But I took off the first half and then of last year, and then I invested a bunch to try to hit a goal by my birthday last year. And then I compounded the money just in Amazon all through Q4, which I'm going to do again this year, because you can get 10% higher returns on average in Q4 on different stuff, just compounding across 3 months and everything. And then this whole year, I've been going hard, especially since it started to dip in February or whenever it did. I've been investing heavy, but I like to think, at least in my own personal ecosystem, I earned the right to, in that now I'm lucky to have the free cash flow I do, that I can keep growing Amazon and do that and everything. But I at least in terms of the standards I was setting for myself, I didn't have that really until this year, I think.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of the hard parts of running your business. You get to make all the decisions, which is great. There's a ton of autonomy, but then you have to sort of start making those decisions in terms of, when do I start pulling chips off the table? Margin is a really big thing. You have to understand how that works. I know with OA, you're probably spending a lot on credit cards, and the credit card
crippling amounts, but I'm a better man for it.
Yeah, that's a whole different game where you can really stack those rewards as well. But those are kind of the fun steps as you grow the business, as it matures, then you start making decisions. And obviously, I'm a big believer in understanding your numbers. I was talking to a buddy. We've got kind of a weight loss challenge going on. And one of the best things you can do, there's so much information. Weight loss is its whole category, and nutrition and exercise. And there's so much, it's paralyzing amount of research where it's just, you just hey, I can't even follow it. And one of the simplest things you can do is literally just step on a scale every single morning. Because if you see that number every single morning, you will start just intrinsically thinking about it. You'll start figuring out ways to just naturally eat healthier, to move more. And instead of getting hung up on, well, what's the most efficient diet or what's the best way to exercise, you'll just start saying, what can I do today? And so the idea also in your business is to figure out some sort of metric. And that might be like it could be as simple as how many books did I scan today, or setting a weekly number just to say, hey, I'm going to scan 500 books a day, knowing that if I do that, I'm going to start seeing gains and start seeing results, and then I'm going to easily ramp that up. So are there any numbers that you monitor in your business, or whether it's your health or your business? And if so, could you talk us through a couple of those?
Yeah, so definitely a lot more last year. I was like a lot more focused on like key metrics and such. And this year I kind of just like at least so far this has worked, like just really focused on just cranking in stuff to Amazon and worrying about the numbers later. Because from a repricing perspective, when you don't like books, you have thousands of SKUs. OA, you don't. So that's the only thing I need to monitor. As long as I have sufficient supply, it's just making sure repricing, I'm dialed in, stuff's moving as it needs to be. And I know the ROIs, I know the fees, I know the buy costs all in my head on some of this stuff because I've been doing it for like a year or so, because there's not a lot of variance in SKUs and everything. But honestly, not really. I'd say the stuff I'm looking at the most is, definitely daily sales and such in Inventory Lab, going into the back end and just scrolling through sales and making sure the repricer didn't go wrong. Changing the repricer a few times a week based on what I see moving and what I see not moving that I need to move. And then just like active units in Amazon, but obviously like net profit at the end of the day is the big one and everything. But I kind of see that as a result of everything else, me making sure I'm doing what I need to be doing with everything else.
Yeah, if you can kind of figure out the key levers or the early indicators, leading indicators, that can kind of help you as well.
Oh yeah, and I actually gave a terrible answer. They had the one that really matters is spend, and that's the one I actually really track. So I don't know why I had that all backwards, but monthly spend is the big one, and daily spend.
Because that's sort of indicating that you're feeding the beast and kind of getting the inventory that you need.
Absolutely.
Hey, I've got a question for you, Miles, real quick. So we're in the book space, and so for us, even though we both sell on Amazon, I'm sure we have completely different challenges that we face just working in Amazon sandbox. For books, we have the impending postage increase this Sunday, and that's going to have huge ripples in the marketplace. Are there any sort of upcoming challenges, or is there an existing challenge today in your world in OA on Amazon?
Yeah. So there's always the risk of like Amazon gating big categories, but I honestly don't lose sleep over that. If it happens, it sucked. But after 2 months after that, I would figure it out in other ways and stuff. That definitely would suck. That would ruin like a couple weeks for me. Definitely that happening. And then kind of just making sure some of the seasonal stuff hits the way I want it to for back to school next month, and then December. Big, but I kind of keep it short term in terms of Amazon, in that like I have certain stuff that sells pretty quick. As long as that keeps doing well, I'll be pretty set up moving forward. Or my skills, I'll make sure my skills advance quicker than whatever I guess like challenge in terms like maybe a fee increase or something, which that happened. That's just switch. The market needs to adjust on certain things for like a few months on that, but yeah, just making sure I'm consistently getting better at sourcing is the big thing. That like if that happens that I'm bad, then it'll be incredibly difficult and everything. But just making sure I'm staying in the trenches every day and being good at sourcing, because that's the big lever for OA. For
sure. You mentioned holidays and back to school coming up. How far do you typically have to plan ahead for inventory?
Yeah, so I'm lucky in that I mostly do shoes and clothing, so that does really well in back to school and everything. And in terms of Q4, a ton of people would disagree with me on this, and they're absolutely right in their own regard. I'm not a super huge fan of buying different inventory for Q4, just because pretty much everything goes up a lot in price during Q4. So a lot of the stuff that's working now should continue to work, at least the way I think it will. But I also buy some toys and such, and that's like now and in a few months ago and a few months in the future, I'll be loading up on some toys that are kind of a little bit more hit or miss in terms of Amazon going out of stock and stuff. But I'm willing to take a risk in terms of what I think the returns can be and what the return rates have been in past years on that. But A lot of people are big fans of like holding a bunch of stuff for Q4, and that works. It's just personally not what I'm trying to do on stuff, but there's a lot of validity to that model too, and it's just not personally what I like to do.
All right, one last question from me. So last year, I think Amazon changed the restock limits that had huge implications for booksellers. Did that affect OA guys at all?
Oh, so it totally did, and it was my fault for being completely unprepared. And that what's crazy is I didn't FBA anything OA till September of last year. So, I mean, man, I'm refreshing. It's like November 22nd or whatever. Monday morning, restock limit updates. I think it was Monday morning that they updated. I'm like refreshing, see if I can get 100 extra slots because stuff sells so quick. But man, I only had like 1,000 slots in like November and everything. So that my sales suffered from that from December. And that was my fault for not pre-seeing that or anything. But yeah, so I actually ended up, I was one of the few OA people I think that got hammered by restock limits, but it was completely my fault for not preparing or doing FBA prior to that. But I was literally just all merchant fulfilling the OA stuff after previously having only FBA'd the books. It was weird way of operating on stuff. But yeah, that was definitely a big issue was restock limits once that during Q4 because I was totally unprepared and hadn't FBA'd the way I needed to and have this year to then have nice restock limits for it.
Gotcha. Caleb, do you have any other questions?
I was just going to say, Matthew, after hearing kind of Miles' journey and story, do you have anything you want to grill him on?
Yeah, the whole online arbitrage thing just entices me just from a perspective of it's a whole other way to make money on Amazon that I'm not super familiar with. So I don't know. I need to pay to join your Discord to learn more about the process. I'm just curious, what does it look like in a day of sourcing? Are you always looking for new products? Or are you mainly focusing on a few that are working and just restocking those as much as you can? Or is it always the act of trying to find a new product day after day?
Yeah, so I personally, and this is something that's worked really well for me, is I focus on a lot of not the biggest sites, no Walmart, no Target, any of that. I like to focus on some of the more niche or like retailers you would recognize, but you wouldn't see at every shopping center or every mall. Like a lot of malls, but not everyone type stuff, the online section of that. And the nice thing is everything's public with Amazon. And with OA, there's more volume, right? You can sell theoretically, right, 1,000 of the same ASIN potentially. So people don't carry as many ASINs. And with SellerAmp, you can look inside people's catalogs and then go out and on Google Shopping, look for those items. And I have a good, like, there's probably like, I could rattle off like 10 sites that have really nice coupons that are evergreen on stuff. And then it's going out and looking for those items on those sites and playing those coupons, and that the coupons are your barrier to entry, and that a lot of these items aren't profitable without coupons or without a sale. So therefore, the novice sellers I'm competing with in some cases aren't finding those items, and I am, and that creates longevity and a compounding effect of the catalog in that in a perfect world, 3 months from now, I'll still be selling some of the stuff I'm selling now.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. So are those coupons that you're finding, are those ones you're just specifically looking for? Is that part of SellerAmp, or is that one of those Chrome extensions that just searches for coupons across the web?
Yeah, so it's actually none of those. It's just like stuff being in the trenches that you just find. And like a lot of it is like, I come from the shoe reselling world, and that world is cutthroat in terms like dudes are finessing coupons like crazy. So a lot of those methods have come from that. And yeah, so like I said, a lot of the items I'm selling, like the profitable buy cost won't show up on tactical arbitrage because of said coupons, and the coupons don't show up on Honey or anything. I actually really don't know why. They just don't, or at least some of them don't.
And then another question for you. So when you guys have people start with your course, what is the minimum you recommend people start with capital-wise for online arbitrage to be successful? Because I'm assuming you're going to make some mistakes in the beginning that'll probably cost some capital. So what's kind of a realistic number people need to have in mind if they want to pursue online arbitrage?
Yeah, so on the OA side of things, I'd say like around 1,000. I'm a fan of like if someone says like under 1,000, I'm like books, but also be learning OA at the same time for whenever that comes in and everything. But yeah, in the range of like 1,000, just because OA is way more capital intensive on stuff, so you definitely need some capital prior to starting it.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. We have some questions in the comments here too. You want to go with those, Caleb? You think?
Yeah, I got one last question, and then if you guys do have questions, go ahead and drop those in, and we'll get to those in just a second. We have one more segment to get to. My last question for you, and then we'll kind of jump to our geek out moment. is if you had to go back and start all over again, you obviously had this journey of kind of like stair steps where you've kind of taken steps forward, you've kind of seen what works, you've learned the ropes with books, and then you've decided to apply those same skills elsewhere. What's something that you would change if you could go back to the beginning and tell 18-year-old Miles, here's something you should do? Is there any advice you would give to your younger self that would be relevant to other people that are kind of just starting out?
Yeah, so in terms of like stuff happening consequently the way it did, like my friends transferring, that one kid scamming me but introducing me to stuff, there's not too much I would change in terms of like just like if you could tell me like 2 years ago that I would be where I am now, like I would have said like just do it that way. Like I would have been like, I'm happy and lucky to say that and thankful and everything and stuff. But I don't know, probably like wouldn't have gone to college, but like when I was going to college, like who knows, like a lot of stuff consequently happened that there was an Adidas outlet 40 minutes away. So that was like big. That was where I made a lot of my initial money, was doing that. As well as like living in Pennsylvania my whole life, there's sales tax advantage there for online arbitrage. And then doing like the personal brand for like 3 years without really making much money from it. And then that like exploded from once I learned how to monetize it correctly this year and everything. But yeah, I would definitely say start documenting early, start making content earlier. And from day one, like I have no sales on Amazon, posting a picture of the first box type stuff, because I think that would have helped me make some friends earlier on stuff. Definitely.
Well, and I know Alisa, she's probably still watching, but she did that as well. I loved that her Instagram profile said like 3-figure Amazon sales in the hundreds, which was fantastic.
Yeah, she's killing it with the personal brand. Like literally, like I'm sure she's meeting a bunch of people. I was planning on inviting, we were just texting about her coming to our next OA sourcing Zoom call and everything that I do with a couple of my buddies and everything. It's good stuff.
Yeah, perfect. Well, speaking of, she's got a question as well. She said, if you were to go back and start your personal brand today, what platform or format would be your primary focus?
Yeah, so I would have definitely said YouTube. That's always been the one I focused on the least and have started focusing on a lot. And that's great. I would have done more of that. Definitely. But the nice thing is like there's like-minded people on every platform, just kind of finding and meeting as many of them as possible and everything. But yeah, Instagram, Twitter's great. I'd say the one I like the best is Twitter. That's where that's where I learn the most. Where I make the most money is not Twitter, but like learning Twitter and then creating elsewhere like YouTube, Instagram, that kind of thing. But definitely Twitter for learning.
Yeah, and I'd say for those that aren't on YouTube, I believe, is the #2 search engine after Google. And it's owned by Google. So when I first started out, I was kind of doing all the platforms as well. And I kind of thought it was silly. I'm like, I'm just repeating myself. And I'm sure the same people are watching me on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. And the reality is they're very different audiences. There's definitely overlap, but the Venn diagram is less overlappy than you would think. So the more you can kind of distribute, that's why we love StreamYard. I think we're streaming to Facebook and YouTube at the same time, and that allows us to sort of hit 2 different audiences, which is great. So cool. Well, thanks for jumping in. We're going to switch gears just a second, and then we'll come back and do some questions and wrap up. We're going to switch to a section called the Geek Out Moment, and this is not necessarily business related. This is just something fun that the interesting people. It's always fun to hear what people are nerding out or geeking out about. So we'll kind of go around the horn, and we'll actually start with Matthew, and then just kind of go. We'll go counterclockwise just for kicks and giggles. But what are you learning recently, Matthew? What's something that you're geeking out over the last couple of weeks or so?
Well, this is probably not something most people watching would find extremely interesting, but I have. So a couple of days ago, I had a little consultation thing with a company called Hyros, which does tracking for customer conversions and ad spend and everything else like that. And I'd heard of a few different companies like them. I knew of them for a long time because I followed their founder since way before he started that company. But it was going through that platform and seeing a demo of it. It's just amazing the way you can track a customer journey from the first time they see you to the first time they click to where they actually make a purchase from, and all the different ways it can be lost along the way if you don't have something tracking it from start to finish. And so it's kind of an amazing tool to see that I didn't think was fully developed as much as it is, and it has as many features as they had. So that was a cool thing just from a marketing perspective to see. But also David, when David and I were in Denver with Caleb a little while ago, we were talking about Webflow and a few different cool features a website had. And it prompted me this week to go and see all the different updates. Webflow, which is a website creation tool that we use for Scout IQ and stuff like that. If you guys make websites or want to make a website, Webflow is awesome. But I went through and looked at all the past updates, and there's so many things they've added that I want to start implementing on all of our websites and stuff like that. And it's just amazing to see how fast technology adapts, and things you thought weren't possible before now are just a few clicks to be able to do what you thought you couldn't before. So that's just been a cool thing. I've been going down the rabbit trail of those two things, Webflow and Hyros, and this kind of marketing and customer journey this week, which has been fun. So I got a lot of thoughts for you, David, and Caleb tomorrow on our call. So I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. Miles, what are you geeking out over lately?
Yeah. So, and this is like, it's kind of weird and everything, but I've just been kind of geeking out over like the idea of just like really spending a ton of time in nature and everything, and how that at least makes me feel. And I think it makes a lot of other people feel really good and stuff. So I've just been doing a lot of that. I'll like just go like shirtless. There's like a river near my house. I'll go just like wait around, or put like a beach chair in it and just like sit there, eat some like frozen strawberries or whatever. But yeah, I've been doing that a lot, and that makes me feel fantastic and stuff. And it really kind of like, it's crazy like that's free when that makes me feel better than like a lot of stuff that costs a lot of money does and everything. But yeah, just like I guess kind of holistic health or whatever, but just yes, really nature maxing and such.
Do you find you have a lot of thoughts that come to you when you're just sitting out there in nature?
Yeah, and I take a lot of calls out there and everything, and that's just good. I feel like because I can do that just as easily as I can do it inside, but it just also like makes me feel much better and everything. But yeah, definitely.
Is water the biggest draw to you, or are you just hanging out in the forest and stuff?
I would say it's mostly the sun, like as much like exposure to the sun as possible, and such. And what's crazy is like I'll go out on like a Saturday at like 2 p.m. or whatever and won't get sunburned, just like chilling for like hours and everything. I don't know, like I used to, and for whatever reason I just haven't. And I don't know if that's like some weird voodoo like power of the mind stuff or anything, but I don't know, maybe it's definitely
that golden tan, I guess, probably.
Dude, I guess something like that.
Well, I love anybody that has, the ability to work remote. And one of the best things about being an entrepreneur is it allows you to change up. There's something about an environment and changing that, whether it's a good view of nature. I love to travel because if I'm just in my home all the time, you just kind of get stuck in a rut. And somehow being on a plane, meeting different people, I'm down in Arkansas, it's different vegetation, different, everything. Somehow that just kind of jostles the creativity. So that's awesome that you can take calls out in nature.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. People probably look at me like I'm crazy, but it is what it is.
I was going to say, I can just imagine like you with a launcher in the middle of the thing, and you're just like taking calls. And
dude,
like,
literally. Yeah. Dude, see, all my friends think I'm insane because I always answer it there whenever like I call them or they call me or whatever, most of the time.
Dude, I would freak out if I was like hiking and then I saw some dude like taking calls, eating frozen strawberries, half naked in a river.
Yeah, dude.
You kind of stare at people. You're like, get out of my office.
Yeah, seriously.
That's awesome. Dave, what are you geeking out over?
All right. So right now I am almost done with this book called Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh of Zappos.
Rest in peace.
And yeah, rest in peace. And I mean, man, what a powerful book. And man, if you're an entrepreneur and you care about customers, and you should, because they're the livelihood of your business, read this book. And man, it's so great. And the crazy thing is like, I didn't even pay $3 for this. I just found it in one of the boxes. Oh. And what's even crazy is I was like looking at the publishing page, and it's the first edition, first printing, which is pretty cool. I don't know if it's worth anything, but yeah, no, it's such a powerful book. I'm just like blown away. So
yeah, I'll have to read that.
It's a great book. We probably should talk more about books, since it is a Books and Bourbon episode. We should talk about what we're reading, but I'm glad you're finding something there. For anybody that ever meets Matthew, David, or myself in person, ask us about Tony Hsieh's llama. We got to meet his pet llama. We unfortunately never got to meet the man, but it's a good story. There's a little bit of shame. We kind of snuck away from one of our own events, Turn the Page event in Vegas, and snuck away to a secondary party. But yeah, ask us about that story. It's a good one. It's a good in-person story. In terms of what I'm nerding out about, I've been kind of on a health kick this year, just trying to understand the idea of going upstream. So we obviously know that, eating whole foods and veggies and fruit and meat and those things are good. David would disagree with me on the meat frontier, but in general, like we understand what makes, good decisions, and working out and being active is better than not. I've just been experimenting with a lot of things this year. And this week, actually yesterday, before I drove down to Arkansas, I had a blood draw, and it's kind of a holistic doctor in town. He's a chiropractor slash, more Eastern medicine, I would say. It's more foo-foo and less science, but there is a lot of science. And was just looking at the blood and the cellular level and the energy that's in my red blood cells, white blood cells, looking at the platelet function. And so it's just fascinating looking at the cellular health. We kind of identified a couple, like a lack of oxygen, some just blood infection type stuff, like bacterial type things. And so I've got literally a pile of supplements that I'm taking right now, and we're just trying to go upstream, because I could lift weights, I could eat better, and if you don't take care of your cellular health, that's an upstream thing that impacts everything else. And that's a big thing in business, but also when it comes to health, is what can you do upstream that impacts a lot of other decisions downstream. So I am very much an amateur. I am very unqualified to even mention red blood cells, for example, but it's been fascinating digging into that, finding experts in different fields, whether it's blood sugar or just blood health or anything. So I encourage you, especially if you're younger and you don't think you need to worry about health, start researching that now. That'll pay dividends. The benefit, like what Miles is doing. He's a young fella. I look up to you in a lot of ways, Miles, just in what you've accomplished so far. But the fact that you're doing that, you're setting aside some money, you're able to make some of those decisions. Those are going to pay massive dividends down the road as well. So whatever you can do upstream, whether it's business, whether it's personal, whether it's health, I would just challenge everybody to try and make those best decisions that you can. So we will take just a few questions here. We've been going just over an hour. Thanks, Miles, for being here. Thanks for sharing your time with us. That is your most precious.
Thank you guys. Yeah, definitely, man.
That's an hour of your life you'll never get back. So thanks for sharing it with us.
It's immortalized on YouTube. So definitely pain is not had in vain, I guess.
It'll live on and on for the 800 people that decide to watch it eventually. But and thanks for those that are watching as well. We'll take a handful of questions here. And again, if you want to drop questions even after the fact, if you watch this later, by all means do that. Miles, how can people find you real quick before we wrap this up and take questions? What's the best place for people to find you and kind of follow your journey?
All right, so I'm going to point, and I always get it wrong, but I did it wrong. Right here. Okay, right there. Flips4Miles, just flips the number 4 miles on all platforms. I swear, you saw like on the replay, I'm like picking out which one is it, and I did it wrong. Got it right though. Yeah. Oh, he's got it big on the screen now.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Flips number 4 miles, all platforms, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You can just hit me up if you have any OA questions or anything like that. Happy to answer all the DMs and anything like that.
Cool. Well, we'll just kind of jump through some of these questions here.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Kate says, what's your favorite channel in the Discord? She spelled favorite with a U, so we either got a Canadian or a British individual here.
Yeah, so I think the introduce yourself section is cool because you see like all the new people like saying where they're from and everything. And then also like the ones where people post their wins are neat and everything. And there's depending on which you're talking about, I think even in the free one we have a bunch like on gating guides and everything like that. And then I think there's one on like order cancels and different websites, just like decent indication of like how to get started and everything like that. But yeah, probably those.
Perfect. And then she has a follow-up question for seasonal items like back to school. How far ahead of time are you sending that stock in?
Yeah, so as late as possible. So I'm still within return days of sites and everything. Honestly, a lot of seasonal stuff I'll just merchant fulfill, at least at scale, because so it's risk-free in terms of that.
Yeah, and risk-free, like there's always a time element. So if you have to prep it and send it in, there's the risk that the sales rank, it doesn't stay as popular as it is, or maybe other people jump on the listing. So I've heard stories. I don't do a lot of OA or RA, even I do books, but I've heard stories of people listing items in the store and literally selling them before they even check out.
Drop sourcing, hell yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Ben says, how do you find these coupons when you're talking about stacking coupons for some of your OA type sales?
Yeah, so it's like I don't really have a good answer in terms of a lot of them. You just like sometimes like just people will just tell me about stuff. I'll be like, I get on Zoom with people all the time that do this, and it's a lot through that. Maybe different, like sometimes they'll pop up on the website like enter email for 10% off, enter your phone number for 20% off. And then like Kohl's Cash is another kind of thing where like if you just understand how to play it, like Cole's Cash is a great example of one of those. But it's a lot of email sign-up coupons, new account, 15% offs. You can get unlimited email addresses using something called a catch-all, like just catch all, one word, which is cool. So that's helpful getting one of those set up and everything. But they're honestly sometimes hiding in plain sight, and sometimes they're really hard to find. It just came from years of being in the trenches with it.
Yeah, a lot of it is like learning to think like a marketer. So where is a marketer trying to get, new users, getting someone to buy for the first time? So a lot of times we'll see that, like, sign up for our email list or so think like a marketer. It's kind of a game. A lot of this, I say game a lot. Some people take offense to it, but it's the idea of just trying to find opportunity and learning what can sell. And yeah, it is business, it is life, but there is a fun element, and I think that's important to keep in mind. Billy Flip says, I'm guessing this is an inside joke, but he says,
I tell him that on FaceTime like once a day. Like, we need it. Like, he'll send me I see so much of Billy in myself. Like, it's crazy. We're 3 years apart. I started 3 years ago. Like, it's crazy how much it aligns. He's content heavy and everything. I've always been content heavy. It's a beautiful thing. So yeah, Billy, great example, comes out of nowhere making a bunch of content. Like, within a month of him starting, he's like, I'm pretty sure he hadn't even had too many sales, and he was already in our group chat with like all of our buddies now and everything. And he's, I would say gonna have some 5-figure profit months later this year if I have anything to say about it on stuff. So he's a good friend and helps with it.
Billy came to Miami this year as well, right?
That's what I'm saying. He it's great. Yeah, I love it.
If you are on the fence about going to an in-person event, whether it's one we put on or Avery or anybody, just do it. I know it's scary to put yourself out there, but I guarantee meeting someone in person there's just something about that human to human interaction that is just hard to put a value on it. So go do it. Silver Lining says, after getting approved on the Amazon app, why does it still ask us to request approval again? That's annoying.
Yeah,
do you do that a lot? We don't do a lot of approvals in the book game.
Yeah, I'm really not sure, to be honest. Silver Lining. See if it I assume you're seeing that on like Star Hunter. Just request approval again and like submit the invoice again and everything. But yeah, I don't know specific. That happens every once in a while. I might just wait it out.
It could be just a glitch. A lot of times Amazon servers take a bit. Like, you can get approval for a new account and then your Amazon credentials don't work yet. So it could just be that, maybe wait a day or two would be what I recommend. But otherwise, maybe the approval hasn't gone through. Janine says, I came in late. Do you buy bulk for OA, or do you do any individual type items as well?
Almost exclusively bulk, just because there's no way to scale with individual SKUs, or at least to the point that I'm trying to.
Do you ever test buy on some individual SKUs just to make sure it's working?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Not as much anymore, just because I've built up more confidence. But yeah, in my opinion, it's pretty necessary when you get going, just so you don't overexpose yourself to anything. Perfect. It doesn't end up going the way you want it to.
One of our non-signed-in Facebook users says, when growing online arbitrage, do you plan to go deeper in clothes and shoes, or do you want to spread out your risk into other categories?
Yeah, so pretty much just kind of keeping at it. I think I don't know how high I'll ever go with Amazon and everything, but probably if I were to grow beyond like what I'm trying to cap out this year at probably like 2.5-ish and everything, I would have to go wholesale, I think. But who knows? Always great for now, and I'm just gonna keep chopping along as need be. And if it comes time that I decide to get a warehouse and really expand, then I will probably have to go wholesale route on some stuff.
Perfect. Let's flash forward 5 years. Amazon is dead. Let's just hypothetically, Ooh. Where do you see yourself?
Okay, so I know whatever I'm doing, it'll be content oriented. That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, trying to get equity in as many assets as possible on that, and making content around whatever online business, but definitely something online biz content oriented. At least like half of my income probably will be, or something like that. Who knows? But something more equity based, like a Shopify brand or something like that, probably.
Cool. Well, I can't thank you enough. Thanks for coming in here.
Thank you.
Fantastic interview. Seeing it seems like a 30-year career compressed down into 3. We're excited to see where you end up next. And thanks for your enthusiasm and energy. That's always good to see.
Thank you guys. Absolutely. This was a lot of fun. Thanks to everyone listening too.
Yeah, definitely been inspiring to see your journey. It's great that you've documented it so well, because it's cool to be able to see that, even not talking to you personally, just watching you on Instagram and seeing where you started back when we met, like whatever it was, Avery's first Miami event, I think is what it was. just to seeing where you are now, it's really inspiring. So yeah,
Thank
definitely
you.
look up to you, like Caleb said as well. It's just really cool to see that journey and your work ethic.
Oh, yeah.
Inspiring.
Appreciate it.
Cool. Well, with that, we will conclude episode 11 of Books and Bourbon. Thanks everybody for being here. And don't forget to visit our sponsor, homestarrunner.com. Again, pseudo sponsor. The check is in the mail, I hope. But again, tune in next week. We do these every Thursday, typically at 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you do have any guests that you would like to see, drop me a line on Instagram, drop me an email, caleb@thebookflipper.com. Alisa says this, thanks. This is our second favorite episode. I'm assuming her favorite was herself.
Pretty good.
Very ego-oriented, but understandable. So thanks for being here, and thanks everybody for watching. We'll catch you next week for episode 12. Have a good night.